At this moment, I would like to pass off the baton to Hank, my co-host and co-moderator.
Hi, everyone. My name is Hank Courtney. I am the Vice President of Leadership for Student Senate. I'm just going to go over the rules for this forum real quick. For the next hour or so, we're going to be using an open forum for our audience's voices. This is not a Q&A with our administration members present, but rather we're hoping we've designed a safe and supportive space for you to share your stories and experiences. We'll be taking notes and listening and learning throughout. The administrators present will be given an opportunity to respond.
All right, have fun. Good to see you.
Please note that this meeting will be recorded and posted to Senate's website. If you'd like any of your contributions omitted from the public recording, please feel free to reach out to us afterwards. If you would like to speak in this forum, please use Zoom's raise hand function. You'll be added to a list of upcoming speakers and we'll call on you in sequence. Please keep your statements as concise as possible. We'd love to give you infinite time to speak and tell your stories, but in order to give everyone an equitable chance at the floor, we're going to be capping everyone's talking time at about 1.5 minutes. You may raise your hand to speak multiple times, but please be conscious that others may need a turn before you. And if you are not speaking, please remain muted and be respectful while on camera. I'm going to pass it back to Will. Thanks.
Thank you. A quick note, I just want to introduce the sentiments of being an ally. So during this time, we want to encourage Black students to use this floor to have an open dialogue. And for the allies, we just ask that you take a step down. It is important as an ally to know when to step up and to step down. But at a time where Black lives really do matter, we ask that we have an opportunity for us to speak. We have always been known to take a step back and not speak, especially in rooms where we feel uncomfortable. So we ask that as allies, you allow us to speak, use this time to speak to administrators for proper change. Allies will be given the opportunity to speak later towards the end of the forum. At a time right now, we just need to prioritize voices that actually do matter. Thank you. Ralph, since you raised your hand first, I would like you to speak right now. You're allowed to speak.
Hi, can everyone hear me firstly? So what I want to say is that one of the things Lehigh needs to do to be anti-racist is to stop defunding.
Ralph, I hate to cut you off, but
Funding minority-based programs. For instance, the Lucy program that we had, it was, the funding was cut.
If at all possible, could you type your statement into the chat because we cannot hear you at the moment?
Can everybody hear me better now?
Unfortunately, no.
Okay.
Arsenio proposed something decent. If you are not planning on speaking immediately soon, you may want to just turn off your video to help the video be improved for everyone else.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing now. Sorry.
But he's put his statement in the chat. He thinks Lehigh should stop defunding minority-based programs.
If you would like to speak next, you can click participants, and then you should be able to click the raise hand button. That's what I've been told.
Can everybody hear me now? Clear.
Unfortunately, you're still lagging. I suggest just use the chat for now to put your statements, unfortunately.
Yeah, I wanted to- yeah, and I believe that like we need to bring back the Lucy Pride minority students. Additionally, I also think that the police chief, they should be interested in.
Ralph, unfortunately, we're just gonna come back to you, if you don't mind. Sorry that we can't hear you at the moment. That's okay.
Okay. Looks like we have a second person raising their hand. Jovan, would you like to speak?
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Crystal.
Awesome. So I'm a part of the alumni class of 2014. I know Lehigh has like a long history of going, back and forth with this kind of struggle. And there's always been different groups that came out of it. So I remember being a part of FBR, and there was a list of demands that came out of that. And just curious what Lehigh is doing to actually start meeting some of these demands so we can stop going around in this cycle. Specifically, I know there was a request for having a critical ethnic studies course. I think I saw one of the professors currently at Lehigh, Professor Siri, if I'm not mistaken, had a list of demands on how this could be implemented. So curious to hear Lehigh's thoughts on that.
Anyone else would like to speak? Please raise your hand.
Can I just say something really quick? Guys, we talk so much through social media, through group meets, through everything. Y'all need to say what you've been saying and stop being scared. This is a perfect time. We have senior Lehigh administration here. This has never been done before. Speak your mind and stop being afraid. Nobody is judging you. Nobody's going to say anything to you. Speak. Please speak. We can only help you if you voice your concerns, if you voice what you want. And if you don't tell us anything, it's going to be the same cycle and nothing is going to get done. And all we're going to do is go back and cry boo-hoo. I'm done with crying boo-hoo. Say what you need to say, please, please.
Thank you, Savannah. Next person, we have Shanice Marrow. Can you please speak?
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, so I'm Shanice Marrow, and I'm from the class of 2018 and 2019. And actually in 2019, I was President Simon's graduate assistant. So I've worked with him for a full year, just talking about how Lehigh can be better. So when Lehigh, I guess, released what they were going to do last night on their Facebook, I wrote specifically sort of what Jovan said, that there needs to be some sort of implicit bias sort of class that is required. And I suggested by having that with English 1 and English 2. So English 1 and English 2, we pick it based on, for me, at least when I was a freshman, I picked it based on what time goes well in my schedule. And I did not know what topics those were. And I definitely think that instead of just having English 1 and English 2 and making everyone take that, there should be 2 full semesters of implicit bias classes that covers the topics of all different biases against all different people. It doesn't necessarily have to be against Black people. It literally can be against everyone. And I think that just a thing that you definitely can do, something that you definitely can implement, is a class, and you can replace English 1 and English 2 because all freshmen have to take that class. So that's all I have to say. And I hope that there's some sort of resolution to this. That is definitely something tangible that you can do, is to work it within the curriculum.
Thank you, Shanice. Next person we have is Hubert Dagbo.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for the floor. Similar to Jovan, I am class of Lehigh 2012, so quite a ways back. But I was there around the time of 2008 when President Obama was elected, and very similar campus-wide forum took place due to a number of racist events. And a lot didn't happen post that in terms of all of the actions. So I think to President Simon and the rest of the administration, I'd really like to understand what you mean by holding leadership accountable. What are the KPIs, the dashboards, the metrics that you're holding the rest of your fellow leaders accountable with? And can we make that transparent to the community? Are you thinking about things where if those KPIs are not being met, there's some type of punitive action? I think we need to think outside the box and be as transparent as possible to make those changes. So I'd really like to understand that. And again, to everyone, let's speak up. Regardless of the emotions running through us, this is definitely the time to have our voices heard. So thank you.
Thank you, Hubert. I don't want to mispronounce your name. I'm gonna hope that it's Joshir. Is it Joshir?
It is. You got it.
Thank you.
Yes. Hi, everyone. This is Joshira Maduro. I'll just keep my video off to kind of save from any lagging, but I am also class of 2012 with Hubert, and I do want to also echo somewhat things that's been brought up already with Shanice and Jovan, as well as Hubert, that it's a combination of needing something required within the curriculum, because that's the only way you can really reach everyone. And unfortunately, it's not no longer about an elective or a club anymore. It's about making it required so that there's no way you can in the same way you can't escape diversity issues. Like even now with this, this movement is becoming echoed on a global scale. It should be a requirement across campus. And the only way to do that is through the curriculum. Speaking from a business perspective, since I went to the College of Business and Economics, and I've been, working in branding firms and marketing and market research, I can think about it in terms of business, how it can apply in, the foundations of marketing class, having a project specifically around understanding how a company as a brand can communicate and do better in diversity and inclusion and what it can implement, because doing that kind of project can allow for students to understand how they need to think about it when they become, future business leaders. So that's one way I'm thinking about it. I do like what Hubert's saying about the KPIs and understanding how are we tracking this? How are we knowing? Because a lot of times I've also heard it. I've also been in 2008 when, hearing racist remarks and thinking, okay, how are we going to change? And there was not much follow-up. So I think doing surveys, constantly checking in, constantly having these kind of meetings even quarterly can help kind of gauge where we are and where we need to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Iman, you're next.
Hi, my name is Iman. I'm a rising junior, and I really want to talk about transparency within LUPD, because last semester previously, the first gen housing community, we experienced an incident and like a gang incident. Unfortunately, we were never informed what happened to the individuals, or what happened, or even if the individuals were found. So I would really like to call for that. And I would also like to piggyback off of what Ralphie was saying in the beginning about bringing back programs like Lucy, because they truly helped low-income minority communities have a break start. Yeah, basically that was what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Iman. Alexandra, you're next.
Okay, so basically what I wanted to talk about is similar to what Ralphie had mentioned in the first minute. So the issue I wanted to speak on is about the lack of programs, initiatives, and grants available to minority students. The majority of minority students attending Lehigh are low income and do not have access to the same opportunities as our peers due to socioeconomic barriers. Lehigh prides itself on its proclaimed diversity and frequently receives awards for initiatives to promote diversity and inclusion in both its demographics and its programs available to students. But in reality, Lehigh puts forth very little effort to acknowledge the barriers low-income students have to overcome compared to our peers. The class of 22 has about 25 Black students, and our numbers increased by about 100 with the class of 23. And I personally can't understand how Lehigh can increase the numbers of us here, receive awards for their efforts, and slash the programs to slash the very few programs that are available to us. So the 3 programs that we have, Lucy, a program which was originally 1 or 2 months long, I think, is now a couple of days long, and Passport to Success, which is only for first-year students. They provide lunch twice a month to students and a grant for students that want to study abroad, but one, not all minority students want to study abroad, and two, there are immigrant students here who are afraid to do something as simple as leave the country. So that grant is useless to them. So the very few programs that we do have, programs and grants that are here, are either only available to first-year students or we are not guaranteed access to them. So what I would like to see from Lehigh is acknowledgement of the barriers that we face, a clear documentation or breakdown of how much funding is being dedicated to us, and a student-led committee to overlook Lehigh's initiatives for minority students and make sure that, in order to make sure you all are giving us equal opportunities. Yeah, that's all.
Thank you. Courtney, you're next.
Thank you. So my name is Courtney Perry. I'm going to be a junior. And I just want to talk about orientation. There's a lot of stuff that we have to sit through in orientation. And frankly, I think all of us can say we do not remember any of it, especially the one thing that was done regarding diversity and issues surrounding diversity. So I think that what Lehigh should do is, first of all, when you do a diversity training, one training is not enough. You cannot cover all of the communities that need to be covered in one training. We need to do a series of training that focus on one group or topic at a time, so students are getting a very in-depth education and training on that. And not just students in orientation, but whatever trainings are done for staff and faculty, I think need to be done in the same manner. I need to be one topic, one community at a time, and be very depth and very honed in on that topic. In addition to including students in the creation of these trainings, because a lot of us are a part of those communities that need to be talked about in the diversity trainings, and a lot of us can share some real life experiences on campus and off campus that should be included in those trainings for students, staff, and faculty. Thank you.
Thank you. Nikki, you're next.
Hello, I'm a rising senior, and during my time here at Lehigh so far, I've only had 2 Black professors, and I definitely think that's a problem just because within the classroom itself, most of my classes, I'm the only Black person there. And if I'm not, I'm definitely the only Black female in my classes, and I'm in the business school. So I think that that's definitely an initiative that Lehigh should focus on, is with more Black professors and more minority professors, just so that we see someone in the classroom that looks like us and can relate to us, and just to really work on that moving forward.
Hi.
Hello, everyone. What I would like to talk about kind of ties into the inclusiveness and the curriculum. Me being I've graduated in May, so I'm no longer there, but I was at Griffin for 3 years, and through a lot of that kind of training and meetings, we talked a lot about microaggressions and inclusivity and how to kind of incorporate that into the dorms. There are oftentimes just voluntary programs, so it wouldn't necessarily serve its purpose. And I felt as though we were having these talks, which is great because it's kind of spreading the awareness and knowledge amongst a group. It's not necessarily doing enough because those might not even be the people that we need to reach, or if it is, it's just not enough of the Lehigh community. And so by doing that, that's a good step. It's just not enough to really spread that inclusiveness, because I still know that there are people on our campus that have no idea even what a microaggression is. And I feel like those kinds of things are an important step to make a change.
Thank you. Michael Osei.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mike Osei. I'm rising senior and president of the National Society of Black Engineers. From Lehigh, we need more transparency. What's the university's current protocol regarding acts of racism nationally or on campus? We need certain guidelines for them to follow, so when they slip up, we need to be able to call them out and know what they're doing wrong. And then who's making these decisions ultimately? by administration, and what factors distinguish this is worth talking about versus are we just going to stay silent as Lehigh? And then also, what are already like a definite solutions? This should be including like the guidelines that Lehigh should follow that should be open to the students. So again, we can call them out.
Thank you. Shanice, I'm going to go to the person under you and then back to you if that's okay. Christian, if you don't mind.
Hi guys, my name is Kristen White. I'm the class of 2020. I'm sure I speak for a lot of people when I say this. We want to know why our quote unquote President Donald Trump still has an honorary degree from this institution. As a Black student on this campus, I find it highly disrespectful and just highly, I feel like it's not appropriate for an institution to talk about diversity, to talk about it being an anti-racist institution, while this man still has an honorary degree. He has called Black people thugs. He has not called any white people thugs for doing the very thing that we were doing, which was just protesting. So it's not appropriate that this man still has an honorary degree from this institution. I feel that we as students would like that honorary degree to be rescinded. He should not have a degree from this institution when he is out here calling people thugs, being inherently racist, and just promoting his racist agenda. We do not agree, and I hope you will take our thoughts into consideration.
Kristen, Shanice.
Yeah, so that was the question that I asked inside the chat. And like Kristen said, I find it very disrespectful that he still has a degree, given that he has disrespected many different groups on campus. He has disrespected Latinos, he has disrespected Muslims, he has disrespected Black people. So I find it completely disrespectful, and this will be a very good way to show that you are in solidarity of Black students and other people who he has attacked on this campus by rescinding his degree. There's nothing I don't know why you're holding on to his degree and why he's holding on to his degree. Just rescind it, point blank. But I gotta go. Hope you all have a very productive conversation.
Thank you. Benjamin. Ben. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone that spoke for sharing and speaking up. I will say, though, it is oftentimes in America, and especially here at school, where the people that have to carry the burden of being oppressed and surviving day to day are the ones tasked with solving the issue. We didn't create these problems. We shouldn't be put the burden of handling them, and then after coping with them at a high achieving academic institution such as this one, to then also tell you how to do your job better. Another thing that I would like to say is that I have been involved in many parts of Lehigh University. I served on student senate for an entire year. I ran a committee for an entire semester. I'm on student clubs from A to Z. And I think that being such a big part of the community at Lehigh and every part of it, not just cultural organizations, I can only speak from my own experience. I still feel like I have to prove myself that I go to this school, whether it's by showing my ID to security officers that are there to protect me. And I feel like that's a very dehumanizing act, given that we pay their money to be here. Like, they wouldn't be there without us. And I'm very grateful to the scholarships that I have been given to be here, but I'm a smart individual. I work to get it to this position. I don't need to get on my hands and knees to ask someone to give me money. And I think that a lot of other people will benefit from that mindset as well. And I guess just the last thing that I'll say is, to anyone else that wants to speak, I think you should, but you don't have to. There's been others that have said in the past that, like my ancestors in the past, the master would not give us the keys to the slave house, and I don't think that is the same today. So that is all I'm going to say, and thank you for giving me the time to speak to Student Senate and BSU.
Thank you, Ben. Just a quick reminder, there are some people who are opting to step out to let other minorities into the chat, so please let other people know that there's space in the chat to enter. Kadia, I believe that's how you pronounce your name. Correct me if I'm wrong. Very nice.
I will. It's Katie, actually. So thank you for this opportunity. I'm actually a graduate student. I'm in my second year of the doctoral program in educational leadership. I also represent the Graduate Student Senate. I'm the Vice President of the Senate currently. And I have a unique perspective here because I'm an international student, and just coming into the Lehigh space, one of the things that was, very poignant for me was having to navigate a predominantly white space. And literally, as the person who just spoke a while ago, feeling that you always have to prove yourself. We, within the College of Education, myself and another friend of mine, we hosted a town hall just to speak with the faculty about some of the things that students had issues with. And one of the great things was, of course, we say we're promoting diversity and inclusion, but it seems more rhetoric than practice. And so one of the things that we continue to have to push for is not just having that training for students, but for staff, because it should not be that my second year, I've only had one Black professor in the College of Education, that's one, and the only Black professor that continues to talk to us about diversity, segregation, things to do with race. That should not be the case. The microaggression is real because I've experienced it as well. So the training should not just be for students, but definitely for faculty. And as one of the other persons said, not just a one-shot thing, because they don't even realize sometimes the things that they're saying that make the students feel like they are less than when they are just as good as any other students in the class. Thank you for the opportunity.
No problem. Thank you for your kind words. Freddie.
Hi, everyone. Freddie Coleman, class of 2017 and class of 2019. It's great to hear a lot of student voices and seeing familiar faces and new ones who are now being the vocal leaders on this campus, which is great. I was in your shoes at one point as well. And it's disheartening to look back at Lehigh and see that we're still having these same conversations that even as a senior at the time, I was hopeful, like, wow, we've worked so hard for 4 years and we've finally implemented some structures to advance the university. And then now to look back in almost 3 years and the same conversation about the same ideas still trying to be implemented. Though there are new administrators, there's new organizations being on campus, the same problem still there. And honestly, frankly, what I expect Lehigh to do is to take a bolder step. Instead of trying to walk around the bush to make it seem nice and seem like there's progress, but not actually do anything, is to take those bold steps to really show the community that is on this campus who pay tuition, which is almost nearing $80,000 if you want to round the number up, and to its alumni as well, that Lehigh really wants to take that bold step. One of them, which I would like to emphasize again, is to rescind that honorary degree to Donald Trump. We are I'm jealous in a sense that Lehigh University is one of the best schools that has given this man an honorary degree. And it would say so much to this country and to the world to hear our institution take that bold step in the right direction. And honestly, I think as a Black man who had to go to PWI, who so proudly would say that, yes, I chose the right institution because you guys went to that next step. But I don't have anything else I would like to say. I will give my time to the rest of the group. Thank you.
No problem. It's good to see you, Freddie. Najee.
Hello. You can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So hello, my name is Najee Michelle. I'm currently in the College of Arts and Science, and I'm a sociology major. And we constantly talk about race and its issues and the systems put in place in our society that hinder minority groups, especially Black people. However, these professors are not the ones who can directly relate to these effects, and it's important to have professors who can provide experience while also educating us on these matters. The one professor that I had constantly shared her personal experience, and it made learning about the oppression, the systematic racism, the financial and educational disparity, and many more real because she personally faced it. And it's ridiculous that the one class I learned the most about my major was taught by a Black female professor, where all the courses that I have had should do that job. So I wish you would hire more Black and people of color professors. That's it. That's all. That's all I have to say.
Ralph, ready to give this a second shot?
Yeah, can everybody hear me now?
Crystal clear.
Period. So the first things first, Lehigh University is defunding minority programs. That doesn't even make sense because you have yet to even have a century of Black students on campus and you're out here slashing minority programs. The Lucy program was defunded, and that was a big experience for students who had no idea what the college experience was like. We already have to navigate being in a predominantly white space on top of academic pressures, and that alleviated some of our academic pressures. So that Lucy program needs to be brought back, and it needs to be better than what it was originally. It needs to be longer than 3 weeks. Additionally, we have the financial aid counselors at this school are all people who do not understand poverty at all. I went to a financial aid officer asking for help as someone who was in foster care. They didn't even understand that I was a student in foster care. They didn't even imagine that possibility in their mind. So we need someone who is first and foremost, someone who is from a low-income background and is also a person of color. Also, we have no sources dedicated to undocumented students on campus. When the financial aid office sent out emails about the CARES Act, that excluded the undocumented students automatically, but most undocumented students are also in high financial need. So they needed resources separate from ones that were excluded from them due to policies. Additionally, the police chief needs to figure out what they're going to do about training their police officers on implicit biases. I've been racially profiled by the police officers 2 times, one by IUPD and one by Bethlehem Police Department. That should not happen on a campus like this. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ralph. Miguel. Miguel Cole.
Sorry, I was having camera and mic issues.
All good.
So I was just thinking of different ways that something like this can be implemented on campus, as has been spoken about before. I was wondering if there was a way to integrate it into a sort of 5x10 series that teaches structural oppression, privilege, and racism in America. It's just like there are stuff in place at Lehigh that teaches you about a lot of things, and for that I am grateful, but this is something that is definitely needed and has been missing. I'm thinking about stuff in regards to 5x10s, and also I know that there's this program that you have to take part in before you join Greek life, which is mandatory so you can join Greek life, and stuff like that should be mandatory for every freshman to learn about structural oppression and the state of America in regards to race and the history of race in America. So yeah, I was just like trying to offer some ideas of implementation. Another idea is mandatory modules explaining stuff like this for not only students, but for staff and faculty as well, all the way up to you, President Simon, and all the way down to an incoming freshman. These are things that people need to learn about and need to know about because they're not learning about it. And there are only certain classes that will teach you about it. And there aren't even many of those classes. People need to know. And it can't just be like, oh, if you take this one class, it'll be done. People have to take these programs because if not, they will continue to ignore what's going on. They will continue to ignore the problem at hand. So I feel like in order to make a change, there has to be certain mandatory things placed so people know. Put it on an installment. Let people know that these things are available and make them mandatory. Not only once a year, not only when you're an incoming freshman, but I think even once a semester. Because if you stop talking about it, certain people have the option to forget about it, and we don't. So we need to not give them the option to forget about it. They need to constantly be aware, constantly be learning, constantly be educating and advocating. And that is what I have to add.
Just a reminder, we are at 479. The limit is 500. We have a lot of open spots, so please encourage more of your friends to pull up to this. Melanie Castro.
Hi, I'm from class of 2004, and I was just talking with some of the alumni that I graduated with, and it's so discouraging to see that so many students now still have the same issues we did back then. I just want to talk about career guidance. I go and I recruit for the accounting firm that I work for, and a lot of the times it's discouraging to not see any minorities come into any of like the club things that we're doing or the career fairs, or, you know, not to be able to interview. And it's almost like these clubs have information that a lot of minorities don't. Anytime a minority has come in to talk to me, it's almost like, oh, I didn't know, or they're not really aware. So maybe some type of program that helps with career guidance would be beneficial, because a lot of the kids that I do interview are taught by their parents and their parents' parents, who have all been through, you know, a lot of college guidance, career guidance, and all of the and people like me and us, sometimes we're the first generation, so we don't know. So I'm not sure if that's something that could be put on the table.
Thank you. Hajer? Hajer Savid? I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Are you here?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm here.
All right.
So what I wanted to say, I kind of wanted to piggyback off what Freddie was saying about Lehigh taking bolder steps. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, so I wanted to kind of piggyback off what Fred said about Lehigh taking bolder steps, because Lehigh keeps, using this phrase, equitable community, and talking about understanding and things like that. But I feel like the administration and the people in charge aren't really taking the time to educate themselves about the issues. I have two specific examples. I want to talk about how Martin Luther King Day, all the events were inaccessible. They were either off campus or during class time, and it wasn't accessible for anyone to attend unless they didn't have class during that day. So if the true intention behind creating this Martin Luther King Memorial celebration was for people to attend and enjoy and kind of, revel in, Dr. King's legacy, the university should have took the steps to make it accessible, whether making it after classes or even canceling classes altogether. And then the second thing I wanted to say about the lack of education and people not educating themselves is kind of in the email that President Simon sent about the George Floyd murder. He kept using the term African American to refer, and I just felt like that was, trying to be politically correct when this issue affects all Black people, not just African Americans. And that's, a lot of Black people on campus do not identify as African American. So I feel like by understanding the people who go to Lehigh and the actual issue and researching and learning, it's important for the administration to be able to actually create an anti-racist campus for us. That's it.
Thank you. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Gladys, please correct me if I said it wrong.
Yeah, it's Gladys. Can everyone hear me?
Crystal, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Hey, I'm Gladys. I graduated a while ago, so I really don't have much to lose. To start off, I really don't know what Lehigh's problem is. I was at Lehigh for 5 years, and I came right after the whole FBR, Umoja incident, Trayvon Martin incident. We've done protests, we've had town halls, and President Simon, I've personally had several conversations with you before. None of this is new. None of the ideas we present today will be new. Everything everyone is saying right now and said before have already been heard. I've heard it, the alumni have heard it, faculty members have heard it, and I'm pretty sure you've heard them too. We Black voices have been saying the same thing for years, if not decades. And I just don't understand how there's barely been any change, and it feels like we're back to square one. President Simon, I get that you had other stuff to deal with, but let's be honest. That first email you sent out was absolutely terrible. It did not fully empathize with the Black community, and it felt like it was simply filled with the same empty words and platitudes as the rest of the campus-wide emails. Also, the fact that you waited so long to even say anything, not even an Instagram post, really hurts, and it's incredibly disappointing. I'll never forget that one time my junior year, I was wearing a Black Lives Matter sweatshirt, and I had a fellow Black peer call me brave because they felt as though if they wore the same thing on campus, they would have been lynched. Black students at Lehigh still have to experience both implicit and explicit racism, and they still have to walk around in fear, experience microaggressions, and it's just so tiring feeling like nobody is listening. We Black students keep doing the emotional and mental labor of trying to bring change to this campus and trying to educate people, but it feels like the university simply does not care. What more can we possibly do? The university needs to educate and mobilize the predominantly white community if we're ever going to get anywhere close to this equitable community we keep advertising. Also, to everyone in this chat, similar to what Hajer said, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, but please say Black, not African American, not people of color. Please refer to us Black people when in times like this. Thank you.
No problem. Ralph?
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Ralph Sean Noel. I graduated in 2015. So I'm an alumni, was also part of the FBR movement that was mentioned. I got to start off by saying it is extremely disheartening, frustrating, quite frankly, pisses me off that we seem to be back at square one again here with Lehigh. It's like we go 2 steps forward and we take 10 steps back. And it took a crisis like this to get this attention. So I just want to say a few things, just because I'm going to echo some thoughts. But one, I saw the post yesterday about Lehigh committing to become an actively anti-racist institution, and I think that we can even go bolder than that, given the fact that we've only had Black students and alumni on campus for less than 50 years at that, right? Or less than a century, like Ralph said earlier. But I think we need to make a commitment to dismantling white supremacy at every angle of this institution. When it comes to our policies, when it comes to our languages, when it comes to where we're funding, when it comes to the way that we show up in the community, how we take care and prepare our Black students for them to come out into this world. As an alumni, I'm very grateful for the education that I got as an Africana Studies major and being plugged into a lot of the Black and brown resources on campus. But coming into the job market, and some folks touched on this as well too, I definitely could have been much better prepared for what I was getting into. And not even from that, but just kind of feeling still behind compared to a lot of students or alumni, our white counterparts, for example, who come from more privileged backgrounds and have a lot more access to things. So I think we also need to think about things like that. How are we setting up our Black students? How are we setting up our low socioeconomic students, right? Education is important, including things like this in the curriculum is extremely important, and institutionalizing it is great. But also, are we leveraging data? What are we doing for us to understand what graduations look like, what job adoption looks like for us, right? What earnings data, right? How much debt are we leaving with, and how are we helping as an institution to help change that as well? Because that is something that does impact our lives and impacts the way that we engage with this institution. What are we actually doing, and how do we actually ensure sustainability? The other things that I just want to also touch on is just, defunding Lucy. Lucy was something that came as a result and was a request of the FBR movement. Why are we not institutionalizing and endowing these funds? And why are we defunding a program that is directly targeted towards supporting this community? It makes absolutely no sense when we say that we are committed to being an actively anti-racist institution, and we're moving money out from these programs that do that. And we're also not funding more of these programs that continue to do that. I saw a petition yesterday that went around also talking about getting more funding for a dedicated ethnic studies program, paying professors and staff. When I was there at the institution, I would talk to staff and faculty and have relationships with them all the time. There were staff and faculty on this campus of color who are slightly, if not below the poverty line, working for an institution that had $1.03 billion endowed in the bank, and it makes absolutely no sense when this institution is profiting off of the intellectual property and the research that is being done by professors and students from this place. So before we go out there and we leverage branding and good comms and good strategy for us to make sure that we're in good graces and make it look like we're doing something, we need to make sure that we are absolutely putting action behind our words and putting action behind our intent. And the last part, and I've mentioned this before in regards to kind of financial aid and loans, I say this because I'm personally affected by it. I'm still paying my loans back, right? And it's real. And we need to have a conversation about that. There are many students that are coming to this institution, many Black students who are coming from low income backgrounds, who do not have the money, who aren't getting full financial aid, who aren't getting full scholarships. And we are systemically being left behind many students who are graduating. Even if we get a good job, we will be left paying these loans that render us near to impossible for us to fully participate in this economy, right, that we're supposedly trying to save in the midst of this crisis. So we also need to be bold and be very intentional about the resources that we're giving these students if we truly want to give them access and we truly believe in equity as well. And those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph. Aisha.
Hey everyone, so my name is Aisha Abdul-Karimu. I just graduated Lehigh last month. And so I kind of agree with the point someone made earlier about constantly having to prove myself at Lehigh. Like, don't get me wrong, I am so grateful to have graduated from Lehigh, but I felt like I constantly had to prove myself as a Black woman. And in regards to Greek life. So I was chapter president of Mu Sigma Upsilon Sorority Incorporated for the past 2 years. And it kind of became a role to just like, as a Black woman, be involved in discussions, speak my perspective. I was once told that, oh, hey, make sure you speak up because, oh, your point is important. It's important that you bring this up, And so, or educating my peers, speaking my mind. So I just believe that we claim we have a shared responsibility, but we need to bring up these Greek organizations. Greek life has a huge, huge, huge influence and impact when it comes to first year students as soon as they come to Lehigh's campus. So, and especially most of these Greek organizations were built up on these racist ideologies and exclusivities. So what's it called? When you have, I don't know how they call it, intake, I don't know how IFC and Panhandle calls it intake. Prior to students having intake, they have to do these sessions where it's about partying or alcohol, drugs, sexual assault. We need to add in implicit bias. That needs to be in there in some shape or form. Prior to a student join a Greek organization, they need to have multiple modules learning about, implicit bias, racism, how to be anti-racist, blah, 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 you name it. We need to encourage Greek orgs to engage in being anti-racist, whether it's an event or adding it to the 10-point plan somehow. Like, they need to be involved in this. I don't know how many Greek members of Greeks are in this call right now, but I know my CGC peeps are in here. I don't know about the rest. So that's all I'm saying. I'm done.
Thank you. Rihanna.
Hi, my name is Ariana Sims, and I'm part of the class of 2023. I am a person of color student, and was a participant in Lucy. I'm also a member of a Pan-Hellenic Greek organization. On campus and within that community, I have noticed, and I know that everybody notices, the extreme lack of diversity and representation. And with that, in engaging in conversations with my peers, there's such a lack of understanding within, with my white peers and them understanding the issues that Black students face on campus and the way that they don't feel comfortable and welcome in spaces. And I was shocked that they truly didn't understand that. And I feel upset in myself for not engaging in those conversations prior, but I feel like having these conversations, it can't stop now. It needs to continue happening when we're on campus, in the classroom, everywhere. This is the only way that students who never have had to face this reality can learn. And with that, so many spaces on campus are inaccessible, as mentioned before, not only because students feel unwelcome, but because of socioeconomic reasons. Whether it's summer classes that help students get ahead, or with Greek organizations. Now there is a Pan-Hellenic scholarship, $500 per semester, but I was unaware of that prior to joining. And I think there needs to be more resources to allow students who have socioeconomic barriers to have access. It's been really hard for me to gain knowledge of the resources that are available on campus, and I think that needs to change because it shouldn't be so hard to find out where there is help. Thank you.
No problem. Sienna.
Hi, my name is Sienna. I'm a rising junior, and I just also wanted to speak on that feeling safe on campus, at least in terms of being welcomed and things like that. I can name countless times where people have said things that came off as a microaggression, and for example, one time I was sitting in the dining hall eating, and there were a table full of white students, and they were talking about, oh yeah, but I use the N-word because I listen to it in music. I don't have an issue with Black people, but I love their music, and that's one of the words, so I say it. And I've also been in instances where I work at Lamberton Hall. I've walked into events there. Sometimes it'll be events for helping the children's hospitals, and they would say certain statements to me, and it really did not sit right with me, and I would have to explain to them that I work here, so I do belong here, and it's part of my job to help facilitate the event regardless of if I'm in the event or not. I've also gone to events that weren't hosted by people that looked like me, but I still wanted to go and show support, and I've been told, or I've had people that were my company and were told, you do not belong here. And I feel like no one should have those things said to them, but then it also becomes a point where it's do I defend myself and tell these people what I'm feeling? And then, but will that end up hindering me or harming me, where it turns into, you're just another angry Black girl, and then it becomes a situation where I do not feel safe and feel like I have to defend myself. And I feel like nobody should be put in that situation. I also have a friend coming to this school. She got accepted, and she's coming in and she's asking me questions, and I don't know how to prepare her for those kind of situations, because nobody could prepare me for those kind of situations. And I feel like those conversations definitely need to be had, because no one should feel like they're not welcomed here, because this is the school that I chose. This was my first choice, and it will still be my first choice. And I also want to say that diversity does not equal the direct solution of racism on this campus. You can add as many students of color, as many Black people as you want, and yes, I'm gonna walk around campus and see more of them, but then what do we do from there? What are we gonna do from there? Yes, we see more of them, but then it's just gonna be so many more. Oh yeah, I had somebody say this to me, I don't know who to talk to. I can say, oh yeah, so-and-so, you can go and talk to them and they'll help show you who else to talk to. But when that staff member no longer wants to work here because they can't deal with what's going on and the institution isn't speaking up, or when that person that was an advocate is a student and they graduate, what are we gonna do then? Yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Kevin Smith.
Hey everyone. So I'm also a graduate student, a student who spoke before, and I'm also international. So I have a pretty different perspective. I wanted to just talk on just one overarching point, and that point is transparency. So one area of transparency that I would love to get more from is really about police training at Lehigh, the Lehigh Police Department. What kind of de-escalation training do they actually go through? And how do I know if I'm safe with interacting with them? The reason why I bring that up is that 95% of my interactions have been very positive. But I remember about a semester ago, I was leaving Roush Business Center late at night, and there was like what sounded like gunshots in the distance, and a police cruiser just like came up right next to me, and I felt like scared. I was like, what's happening? And the police officer, he was fine. He was just saying, hey, we got reports that there were gunshots being fired. But it just felt like threatening him just coming up to me and just passing inside the road. And I was like the only one there. So I really would like more information on what kind of training do police officers on campus actually receive, and especially when it comes to de-escalation and implicit bias. The second thing when it comes to transparency is when it comes to something that hasn't been talked about here a lot, but affirmative action. So one of the things that I kind of was surprised by is that when I first came to Lehigh as a graduate student, international student, and I talked and interacted with some of my peers, affirmative action came up surprisingly a lot, which was surprising to me. And it wasn't overt, like saying, oh, you got in because of affirmative action. It was kind of like this kind of conversation about, and it came from a white peer about how, oh, I didn't get into so-and-so Ivy because I wasn't, the right color or whatever. And so sometimes I do wonder if like schools like Lehigh would be better putting out information about, of course you can't say how you accept students or whatever, but like just like talking about, because students, just from my experience as an international graduate student, I hear it being spoken about. So I could just imagine how much it's been spoken about in like undergraduate circles. So just putting that out there. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Kania?
Sorry, I thought I was unmuted. But my question, I'm sorry, let me introduce myself. I'm Kania, and I'm in the class of 2022. But my question is about the retention rate of Black students in your institution. Me personally, I've known many students who had to leave because of changing financial situations and they weren't supported. And I think it's sad because they were taking the right step in their family to get a better education, and they weren't supported at this institution that prides themselves on diversity. Another thing was, I'm also a theater major, and unfortunately I haven't had the pleasure of being in a class with Cassie Johnson, but in my theater history classes, I learn a lot about Black history, and they're being taught to me by white professors. And we have to have these uncomfortable conversations, and we have to read plays that use racial slurs, and I have to sit in a class full of white peers, and we have to read this and we have to discuss this, and it's falling on deaf ears. And I just want to know, back to the point of hiring more professors of color and every college, not just one. Thank you.
No, thank you. Catherine Mello.
Hi, everyone. I'm a graduate student at Lehigh and have been for the past 4 years, and I'm one of the current co-chairs of the Diversity, Inclusion, and Equity Committee of the Graduate Student Senate. So I wanted to speak today as we, as a committee, wrote an email to President Simon to specifically discuss his initial response to all of the murders and the violence that have been committed against Black people in this country. And I just wanted to speak to some of the policies and actions that we wrote out in said letter and re-emphasize those today. So we spoke about the lack of compensation for the overwhelming labor that women of color do on this campus and how that needs to be rectified and recognized. There's a need to fund critical race and ethnic studies at Lehigh so that every college within the university is required to provide these intellectual opportunities to engage with these disciplines. I'm a student in the counseling psychology program, and my program specifically emphasizes social justice and multiculturalism. And all of our readings, all of the conversations we have are to emphasize anti-racist thoughts, views, and make sure to have a dialogue. And I feel like this is something that could happen in every single class at Lehigh in general. I think there's also a role that we need to think about in terms of Lehigh encroaching to Southside Bethlehem and its impact on gentrification. It really has been a huge issue that I know has been addressed in other spaces, but how are we as Lehigh impacting other spaces, and what are we going to do about it? And really, there needs to be conversations about greater financial support for campus's advocacy spaces that commit to providing advocacy programming and work opportunities for students of color, low-income students, first-gen students, queer students, and more on this campus. I really think that one thing that we could do would be really to think about graduate students in general. Our population is really way more diverse than the undergrad population here on Lehigh's campus, and we are also not compensated in a way that gives us a livable wage, and that really does provide this burden that is unnecessary, especially when we as graduate students consistently are asked to speak off behalf of students of color, to express these views and really speak on behalf of just everyone, when it's really not fair that we're being asked to do all of this work. But mostly, I think it's important that we build a more diverse Lehigh community, not just for the sake of recruitment and quotas, but rather so that Black students and other students of color can thrive at Lehigh. We continue to see examples of how our student community is made better when students find conversations and spaces that allow them to live authentically and find community with one another, like this town hall. And it would be really important that this continues to happen, not just today, not just because of what has occurred nationally, but that we really make these policies happen here at Lehigh, and that the transparency also include graduate students as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Ashley White.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I am part of the class of 2004. So just to kind of echo what a friend of mine said earlier, I am so disheartened to hear that this many years later, so many of you have had to deal with these same issues that we were dealing with in 2004. There's no excuse, and it's not only sad, but it's really to the point of being disgusting that nothing has been able to really progress with the school to this point. I would just like to speak to some of the issues that I've been hearing regarding the police department there. I had my own rather serious interaction with a police officer when I was a student there. And it was traumatizing, we'll say, and it's definitely stuck with me. So to hear all these different issues, I'd just like to speak to the point of training. There is no reason for there to not be any sort of de-escalation training that's been had, among many other types. There are so many that are available out there to law enforcement on not just the local level, but also state and federal. And there are so many resources that are shared among these departments and agencies, and they are so willing to take in law enforcement from other entities. So I would just encourage the school to make sure that they look out for all these different resources that are available, because when you have students of color, it is just intrinsic and it's just inherent that there are going to be potential issues. So why not, at the very least, shield the school from liability and students from trauma, and therefore everyone gets covered and everyone should have the training and just be in a much better position than where the school is now, and more importantly, where the students are now. That's all.
Thank you. Savannah?
I briefly want to talk about Griffins. I'm not sure who's in charge of the Griffins, who's in charge of hiring Griffins, But a lot of these Griffins that are hired to overlook other students are very racist and often cause a lot of trauma to Black students in particular. This past year, I personally lived off campus, but I visited campus. I visited Warren Square a lot because all my friends were there. And every time I was there, it was always a fear to sit outside. It was always a fear to have music playing a little bit too loud. It was always a fear to just be ourselves, to be implicitly ourselves. And Warren Square is a place where a lot of Black students go and they feel like they're supposed to be safe. And it's like these Griffins who are put in charge of these houses are just, they call the cops all the time, just all this unnecessary stuff. So I want to know what the school's going to do to make sure that they're hiring people who are capable of managing other people. Because if you're a racist, you should not be looking over anybody, period. The second thing I want to talk about that was texted to me by someone who cannot be on this call right now is directly towards LUPD about parties. As we know that parties are split on our campus between East and West Side for whatever reason. That's how it always is. So I want to ask, why does LUPD feel the need to shut down any multicultural party when they rarely happen? If they do happen, they'll probably happen once or twice a month. They're always shut down. And East Fifth has a whole bunch of crazy stuff going on. People are doing coke. They're putting Xanax in drinks. They're doing, I'm sorry guys, I gotta say it all. They're doing all of these things to people, but these parties don't get shut down and they continue to happen. So I wanna know why LUPD feels the need to attack multicultural students when they're doing the same thing. We're doing the same thing as our white counterparts. Sorry, let me make sure I said everything that needs to be said. Yeah, basically just racial profiling from Griffins and police officers and LUPD discriminating against multicultural parties when their drinking doesn't even happen. They don't provide alcohol at these parties, so I don't understand why it's getting shut down. But you have these frats throwing parties and people are blacking out and that's it. I'm not going to say anymore.
Thank you for your insightful words. Jogo, if you don't mind going next.
Thanks, Will.
No problem.
My name is Jorgo. I am also an international student. And I would first like to, I think we lost track of the fact that Lehigh itself is an educational institution. And it should not be the role of social media to educate about race more than an educational institution itself. It should not be the role of us who are supposed to be educated to educate the educational institution itself. It's not whatever I'm saying or whatever the people were saying. It shouldn't be a suggestion to Lehigh. It should be a responsibility. It should be something that has been happening for a long time. And actively being an anti-racist institution means, as an institution itself, it means actively not being a part of the institutional racism that is affecting a lot of people. That includes acceptances, loans, opportunities given to Black people or even international people. I know that my peers who are in the same program have done the same things, have the same credentials as me, have had 3 internships or 4 internships over the past 3 years when I just got my first one this summer, thank God. And that just shows something. And also there was a speaker that came to Lehigh, a very highly regarded person. And she was white, and the reason that she got to that position was because she had talked to her father that got her that position, that led her to that position, basically. And it was because of the connections that she had that she really got to this large position, one of the people that Lehigh is very proud of to talk about. And I was wondering if Black people and international students will ever be one of those people, because she got that position because of the connections. And what is Lehigh doing in order to elevate the people who don't have these connections but have the same intellectual power, intellectual gift that can reach that kind of position? And I just want to say, I mean, going back to that responsibility to educate, what is the point of promoting diversity in an institution that is not prepared for it, you know? And So it should be, as an educational institution itself, it should be the responsibility of Lehigh, not the responsibility of social media or any activist or anything. Thank you very much, Will.
No problem, brother. If you raise your hand twice, I'm going to pick some people who haven't spoken and then get back to you on that. Michaela, apologies.
Hey, it's okay. Well, can you guys hear me okay?
Perfect, we can hear you.
Okay, so my name is Michaela Lewis, and I am the founder and president of My Natural Crown, yet another safe space on campus for people of color. I just want to take a second to shed some light on the lack of mental health resources for Black students specifically. As a first-generational college student, the kind of pressure I'm under is immense, and it comes from a lot of directions. While I did choose to come to a predominantly white institution, I do have other concerns other than being Black. Like, I am a human first. So I will say that personally, I went to the health center and I disclosed to someone how stressed I was and the amount of pressure that I was under. And she basically just told me, like, she gave me some coping mechanisms, but she could not understand and empathize and understand the capacity of how stressed I was feeling. So I was just champion the idea of adding more faces that look like mine, more people of color faces into the health center, more psychiatrists, more psychologists, that kind of thing. Mental health is, I don't want to call it a problem, but mental health is a controversial topic in the Black community in general. And at an institution, academic institution like Lehigh, my friends and I take it upon ourselves to dismantle this tabooness of mental health within our networks and within our families. So like I'm saying, it'd be really great if Lehigh was to support and promote and, just help out in the Black college student struggle. Thank you guys so much.
No problem. Dara?
Hi.
Unfortunately, we can't. It's a little laggy. If you don't mind, would you be able to type your statement?
Okay.
Sorry about that. Gaston?
Good afternoon, guys. I just wanted to speak on the fact of what's being done whenever a staff of Lehigh Universities is accused by multiple people of displaying this racist behavior. I've had encounters with multiple bus drivers, and I also have people, I'm going to share their names. Savannah James also had an encounter with a bus driver where they just asked her and another person for their ID, and then told them to please be removed from the bus. And that just reminded me back of a very clear prehistoric event that happened, and just her being removed, as well as like the other individual. Meanwhile, other people were boarding, all because the ID wasn't present. And it just almost, how was somebody picked out of the den? And I just wanted to speak on how the staff is being, put under the telescope. So that's all I want to share. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Victor?
Thank you, Will. So becoming an anti-racist institution will require addressing systematic inequality in education. Systematic inequality really starts with the way schools are funded in underrepresented communities. Many high schools in inner cities don't offer adequate chemistry, calculus, or physics courses, and they're the foundation for STEM majors. But during his time as Director of Student Success and Access, Dr. George White came up with a plan to address this issue. His plan included working with the admissions office to find students that came from underfunded high schools and offer calculus, chemistry, or those same physics courses the summer before their first year. This plan had data behind it. It had proven success in other institutions, and I would like to see efforts to expand it because it would increase to a high retention rate in STEM for minority students. And also, investing in programs like this wouldn't just be the right thing to do, but it will also be a great return on investment. First-generation students tend to be more charitable with donations to their alma mater, and one of these examples is Leah Yapoka. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. Gabby?
Hi, I'm Gabby Montez. I graduated class of 2020 and I'm grad class of 2021. And honestly, like, since I know we're nearing the end of this call, I just want to say that we, the students of color, and especially my Black peers, are exhausted and tired. And I hope to hear some actionable steps for once and to be alerted about the follow through of those action steps from admin. Because honestly, I don't know how many protests, how many of these talks and conversations I've been to in the past 4 years, and I've seen no change. If anything, we've gone backwards. Lehigh has the money to make all of these things people are talking about happen. They just choose to disperse that money elsewhere. Honestly, actions speak louder than words, and choosing to disperse that money to renovate buildings that don't even need renovation on the path to prominence instead of funding programs for marginalized students and providing Black students and students of color and first-gen students and undocumented students and LGBTQIA students with the proper resources has truly demonstrated what Lehigh really cares about time and time again. I want to see the change. The change means providing proper resources to support the mental health of students of color, and maybe even actually having counselors of color in the counseling center who can understand the struggles people of color have instead of just that one token counselor of color who's never available to meet with you. Also, sometimes Lehigh doesn't even have to do the work except direct the funding, which they still choose not to do. Lehigh makes it impossible to change the climate because the students and faculty trying to enact change have to fight the institution to do so. I'm talking about how students had to fight admin for Lucy to even happen, for Elite, a mentoring program for students of color, to even try to happen, and for the Critical Race and Ethnic Studies Institute. And then after that, if they succeed at that fight, then they have to fight the university because the university won't even give them funding for these much needed programs because they fail to even see the need for these programs. So I guess I ask, are you finally starting to see the need? Because I want to see more than just empty emails. I want to see actions. Thanks.
No, thank you. Don Terrius?
What's good, guys? My name is DT. No, Don Terrius. People call me DT. First thing first, all these beautiful Black and brown people in here. I like this support. We gotta keep doing it. But to be real, Gabby said everything I was about to say. To be real, all I want to say really, first to the chief of police, where's that video? The video that happened over the summer about the police going to the Black student here. Like, where's that video? Also to President Simon, to be real, to be honest with everything going on, why isn't any of the board of trustees on this call as well? Like, maybe you do or don't have a direct contact to them, but most likely I believe you do. I'm still wondering, we all saying this information, we all saying what needs to be changed, what should be changed, and what has to be changed. But I know, and I know you know, and other administration know that you have to go to them, right? And when you tell them all of this, how would you present the information, one? And two, will you tell us the reason why some of these things aren't doing it? To be real, I've been here for 5 years. Graduated in 2019 undergrad. I got my master's in engineering 2020. And it's nothing has changed really. I was the founder of Creative Vibes, and the N-word got spray paint in the house. I was appalled by that. I did a documentary on Africana studies, and knowing that the history of Lehigh and how the racism continue and never change. And people, the alumni, they're saying from 2004, did they still see no difference? Like, bro, real talk. I want to know why hasn't anything been changed. But to be honest, I think I really know because it all comes down to money. For a lot of people asking why President Trump still has an honorary degree, President Simon can say, "Oh, our students don't want it. Go to the board of trustees." Do you really feel like the board of trustees gonna be like, "Oh, let's get rid of it"? I'm like, we not like us, but I'm like, President Simon, if you really want to make a difference, you want to make something happen, be more vocal. Be more vocal. Like, we all come to you. The reason why we come to you, because we feel like I personally feel like that you do have a say and got to say to the board of trustees. But if like nothing's going to be changed, you know something, like, you know, like this a history has been shown that if the man in charge ain't doing it, the people who really need to be changed, the change is gonna happen. I'm not saying like I don't know what's gonna happen, but we gonna demand change. We need change, and change is gonna happen. But yeah, this is all I got to say, to be real. Thank you.
No problem. Hank, would you like to make the announcement?
Sure. Thank you all for your contributions so far. In order to keep this event at a reasonable enough length, we just wanted to let you know that you're going to have about 20 minutes left for audience contributions. And then after that, we're going to hear from the administration. So just make sure to raise your hand between now and 6:20. And then after that, if you did not get to speak and you still want to have your voice heard by the members of the administration, we'll be sending out a Google form that you can put your thoughts into that we'll make sure gets to them. Thanks.
Renetta?
Hi, my name's Brianna. I graduated in 2019, and I want to talk about two things. I'll keep it short. Number one, I'd like to talk about is Lehigh's capacity to take accountability. Lehigh should find ways to address the situation other than just referring to the community guidelines that are continually violated, by the way. It's kind of like a blanket to put out the fire, but nothing is done to prevent the future fires. And we're kind of tired of saying the same old, same old. I remember there was a time last year when there was a sudden announcement during 4 o'clock, and after leases off campus were signed and there were limited options available, that Lehigh will cut the number of beds and rooms, which affected students of color disproportionately. Instead of acknowledging the impact it had on students, said, "Oops, my bad, it was an accident," and left things up in the air. And this is just one example. And this displays symptoms of response that is merely quick damage and image control and hushing the uproar instead of engaging with the problem. Number two that I want to talk about, and this kind of goes into back what Gladys was talking about and a number of people brought up as well, I want to reiterate, students and staff of color are told or coerced into doing more than what they are getting compensated for. This is exhausting work because not only do we have to deal with the trauma of living as a Black person of color in America and at a PWI, we have to do the heavy lifting to fix a broken system that does not work for us. I suggest you take note of this term double shifts because it describes something that you should work to avoid, where the burden of responsibility is pushed onto people of color to dismantle the systems that work against us while handling our regular jobs and responsibilities, often without compensation. The burden is often an emotional one and is really burning us out, and we are tired. And I'd like to quote from one of the most hardworking students that I know in respect to planning and creating diverse events on campus. He said, "Administration told me I need to work with more non-cultural orgs to help bridge the gap." Do you know how crazy this sounds? Too often, these responsibilities are not given to more privileged groups or groups with the resources that were given to them, and these people have full ability to make contributions. Step up, don't give us your hands-off approach to these problems.
Thank you. Double check. Brenda?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. So all the students who have spoken out have been able to cognitively map how Lehigh is found.
There's an echo. Hello?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
As I was saying, all the students who have spoken have been able to cognitively map how Lehigh is founded on and continues to run on racial capitalist values. As people have stated, there's so much unpaid labor being done by Black faculty, staff, graduate, and undergraduate students and students of color. Since FBR, Lehigh committed to these principles of equity or whatever they're called, but as Ralph and others have said, this path is leading to poverty and gentrifying our community. So we are tired of hearing shared responsibility, and I hope that every person of power on this call, administrators and the Board of Trustees, will actually move forward and make material changes. I would like to see the school fund the Ethnic Studies Institute so that we can follow in Emory's steps and approve a general education requirement across the colleges for critical race and ethnic studies. And having, for example, a Latino studies program isn't the same as a critical ethnic studies. Critical ethnic studies prepare students to understand how power manifests in our histories and in our present. If we're going to be claiming to be a leading institution, then every student needs to understand how this country was founded on settler colonial racial capitalism, and its favorite pastime is US imperialism. I expect to see an actual effort to fully fund the Lucy program instead of requiring current Lucy students to serve as mentors and doing the invisible labor of making the program what it used to be. As everyone has said, diversity and multiculturalism is not enough. dismantling power and striving for material equity is a step we need to take. And I believe that my fellow alumni, Ralph, has given the president and everyone some notes in terms of data collecting, how much funding we have, and where that funding can go. Thank you.
Thank you. Kristen?
Sorry, y'all. Give me a second. I wanted to say that to Lehigh, please make sure you're uplifting those who are making a difference on this campus. They are not okay because they are constantly doing the work of making this institution a better place. Campus clubs and organizations like the Black Student Union, Diversity Peer Educators, My Natural Crown, the Latinx Student Alliance, Circle of Sisters, and the Men of Color Alliance doing the hard and concrete work of promoting real diversity and multiculturalism. And you guys are not asking yourselves what you can do to promote these activities and the great things they're doing. You guys love to promote how diverse we are, but it's a lie and a facade. The only people doing the labor of making this institution diverse and actively anti-racist are those on Student Senate and the other multicultural organizations we have. You guys are always so excited to promote all the great things happening at Lehigh in research, the business school, and new construction projects, and bringing outsiders to come and talk to us about being anti-racist. Continue to bring writers like Ibram X. Kendi and promote these great things, but also make sure we're having campus-wide conversations about these things, aside from outside speakers that come in. Because let's be real, the only people that were supposed to be there weren't there. And those that were there honestly heard this all before. But how are you actively engaging with the community and engaging with student clubs and orgs that are actually making a difference on this community? And last point, please evaluate your staff members who are plagiarizing education institutes and retreats for students. Do not stress academic integrity while allowing staff members to engage in plagiarism. They need to do the work and emotional toil to actually learn and teach us as students.
Thank you, Kristen. We're about to reach time, so again, I cannot go to people who've spoken twice. I'm trying to get as many new voices as possible. Jennifer Lee.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Lee. I'm a rising senior, and I'd like to speak to my experience as a former executive member of the Association of Student Alumni, also known as ASA. The following question is not a reflection of ASA, but of alumni. In my experiences with some alumni donors, I was often dismayed by their vocal objection to Lehigh's diversifying student body. How does Lehigh plan to be anti-racist when it comes to the often large sums of money donated by alumni who explicitly state they are anti-diversity, or that they do not want their money to go towards programs that support diversity initiatives? Is Lehigh willing to remain vocally anti-racist in face of potential retaliation by prominent donors? I.e., we want to know that is it important to you that you remain anti-racist at risk of losing donor support? And this, of course, is a question for the Board of Trustees.
That was powerful. Thank you. Marciel?
So I want to take the time to address something that I've noticed since before my freshman year when I came into Lehigh, which is Lehigh's super abusive advertising tactics while using diversity. It's absolutely sad that it took comments and heat from Lehigh students under President Simon's post for Lehigh to release a statement, which was that very poorly worded email. Lehigh needs to seriously reevaluate their so-called diversity tactic, which is exploiting students of color as advertisements, yet refusing to speak on real-world issues that directly affect their students of color and refusing to foster a safe and inclusive campus for all students regardless of race. In my experience, Lehigh has always and will continue to overlook the needs of their underrepresented students, but will make them pose for a picture for them to pose on their website or their social media. Let's also address the fact that Lehigh social media took part in the Blackout Tuesday, but did not release a statement before that on any of their social media, whether it be Instagram stories or posts, which I think is very
desensitizing to the Black and non-Black students of color on campus, especially since social media is such a powerful tool for information. On top of that, I believe that if Lehigh actually wants to put money where their mouth is, they should definitely be donating to the various organizations that have been posted for Black Lives, for George Floyd, for everything. And is Lehigh ever gonna match the Venmo account made for Lehigh Students for Black Lives Matter? That's a new Instagram and a new club or organization that came up. Where's the proof of this? Because you guys always talk if we're keeping it real, but the money never goes to where the talk is said. Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but these diversity advertisements are not only misleading for students coming in, but also abusive and undermining for students that are actually, well, I'm an alumni now, but actually enrolled in the university. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to make sure I'm pronouncing this right. Is it Sine?
It's Sneh. Thanks, Will. Hi, everyone. I'm Sneh Zungu. I'm a PhD student, an international student. I was born in apartheid South Africa, where Black people were systematically oppressed and had no civil rights. My generation of young people are the first to desegregate systems in places like schools. So we've experienced our fair share of racism. So for me, witnessing the death of Black lives, that especially has really flared over the past few months, has been really traumatic. I feel really grateful that I'm surrounded by people who have validated my experiences and communicated care, but also find myself thinking what I would have done if this had occurred like pre-COVID. Would I have gone to the counseling center, knowing that I might struggle to find a Black therapist who might help me feel more understood? And I think someone has already mentioned the fact that like we could benefit from more therapists of color, more therapists in general, really, at the counseling center. And I just want to express my gratitude for spaces like OMA and the Pride Center's Cutie Park, and there are others I'm neglecting to name, spaces that do the work of validating Black people and people of color. I'm a bit nervous about the fact that Lehigh will be cutting costs to cope with the impact of COVID. And I really hope that these spaces aren't impacted negatively because of all the cost cutting Lehigh is going to have to do.
Thank you. Winnie?
Hi everyone, I'm Winnie. I'm a second-year master's student in the College of Education, and I would like to see more intentional open dialogues about racial issues in the context of American culture for international students. I was admitted to Lehigh in 2015 as an international student from China. I'm from China, which is a relatively homogeneous country. I also lived in Japan and Singapore prior to coming to Lehigh, and race meant a different thing in each of those countries. And I had a different racial label at every place. As far as I know, many international students are active members of the community, but they, myself included, we don't know how to exactly approach this issue because we don't have the same cultural upbringing as the rest of you guys. I learned about the history, the details of racial issues from my American friends instead of Lehigh. So I really wish that Lehigh could have more, explicit education on this issue. I worked at the Office of International Student Scholars as their graduate assistant in the past year. And as far as I know, OISS is really proud of its diversity. And I have seen many brochures that show off the number of nationalities that we have on campus. But diversity and inclusion are two different things. And I can be honest, I think we do have diversity, but we don't have enough inclusion here. When I was admitted to Lehigh, I was promised a well-rounded college experience, but right now I still see Black students disconnected from white students and international students disconnected from domestic students because we're not willing to have those uncomfortable, sensitive conversations. Thank you.
Thank you. Taz?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
So yeah, I am a rising junior and I wanted to talk about DAP and D Life. So a lot of us come into the school thinking that this is a school for us because of the way DAP and D Life looks. And it looks very opening and it looks very nice because it's funded like crazy. And I've been part of the funding committee. Like I've helped be part of it. I was also like a host and everything like that. However, when we come into the school, you say that this school is our home for the next 4 years, but my peers, my Black and brown peers, don't feel like it is because of the things that they have to go to. We don't come to this school because this school is the school that gave us the most money. We come to this school because we want success, and this school has a very strong connection with alumni, but we're not getting that. We need a stronger community, and I stress again, just like a lot of people did, Lucy is important because of that. And I don't think we should only have Lucy as one program. We should have more programs, just like there's a lot of frats and stuff. I think this is important for us to feel comfort, and we came to the school for success, and I don't want us to have a closed opportunity just by coming to this institution. Thank you.
Thank you. Sam?
Hi, yeah, so literally Tasman, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, and Marcial hit it on the nail. What I was gonna say is that I honestly felt very bamboozled coming in freshman year. I was also part of the DAP program. I was a part of other diversity programs, and also sent so much mail, false marketing and advertising of people on these brochures that are brown and Black and also white. And then I come on this campus and I rarely see people like me. And it honestly is just hurtful, and it hurts me now as a rising senior when people in my community from the South Bronx ask, what school do you go to? I say Lehigh. They're like, oh, like, how is it? And I'm like, oh, it's a good school, good for business and engineering, but you need to feel comfortable being the only person of color in your class. And if you aren't comfortable with that, which is also a toll on your mental health, then it's not the school for you. And it's something everyone in this chat has to deal with. And it's something I've been dealing with. And I honestly feel like, well, me personally, everyone should sort of boycott on not posing for any of Lehigh's marketing tactics until things are done. It's something that we can peacefully do. We can just not ask to be in photos, since our representation is not as vocal as it is transmitted across the country, when even on the campus, we are not even represented. So I don't feel comfortable posing and making other future students of color feel as if people like me are represented when they aren't, nor are we sort of quote unquote respected by our own peers in the classroom or faculty. And I don't know, it just hurts. And I feel like everyone who has talked hit it on the nail, but that's what I had to say. And I personally won't be posing for any more photos.
Thank you. Kylie?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, so I think we need to understand who the silent majority is on this campus. There's going to be racism at Lehigh as long as there are racist students here, as long as there are racist professors here. There are racist people in every sphere, in the health center, in our dining halls, as our professors. Racist people are everywhere. My first day on campus, I'm a senior, my first day on campus, I learned that my Blackness was a problem for people. I've been told I was pretty for a Black girl. I've been told that I'm smart for a Black girl. I was convinced by 2 of my chemical engineering professors, one of whom was my advisor at the time, that I should drop out of my degree, and I did. And I joined a different degree because of that. I joined a Pan-Hellenic sorority on this campus, and I was told by other students that Black girls rarely get to be a part of their historically white sororities. So I said I should take it as an honor. And I need you guys to understand that these testimonies are real, that you need to hear that this is happening. This happened last week. This happened yesterday. This has happened since I was a freshman. If you're afraid of losing money to address this problem at the root, then say that. Be real, be honest, because if you're not, then it's not genuine and we don't want to waste our time. Black people really need to talk about their experiences because people genuinely aren't aware that racism is actually happening. And I'm a tour guide on campus. I want to touch on high school recruitment. And I walk into these lecture halls before I give a tour of groups of about 200 people and their prospective students and their families. And in these lecture halls, there is not one Black person interested in coming to Lehigh. I think Lehigh needs to do a better job at going to high schools in communities where there are people of color, Black students, and letting people know that Lehigh exists. I'm the first person from my school to go to Lehigh, and that's because a lot of Black students don't know that Lehigh exists. Our goal here isn't to make you feel guilty or overwhelmed as an ally, but this is not a one and done type of thing. This is 400 years of an ingrained mindset that we are trying to reverse. So we need your help here. And there are clubs and fraternities and sororities that don't allow Black people as members on campus, and I need you to hear me because you may have not thought that that was realistic. And there are a majority of students on campus that do not see Black history as something real. To people that are saying that these conversations are overwhelming, that these petitions are too much, that you just don't know where to start, these resources have been around for years. Black people have been reading these testimonies, have been watching these videos, have been signing these petitions, and it's clear that you are just starting now. If you're overwhelmed, you have some catching up to do, and unfortunately that's not my problem.
Thank you. Salma?
Oh, okay. So I just kind of wanted to say that, like, after this meeting and whatever happens, I feel like Lehigh alum students deserve the truth, and to every single demand that everybody has made in this discussion, I feel like we deserve a reason to whether you took action towards it or decided not to take action towards it. I feel like that is something that we want, and we want clear transparency with everything that is going on. So whether you decide to take our suggestions or not, I feel like, at least me as a person of color, as a Griffin, I deserve a reason to why the decisions were made after this particular meeting.
Thank you. Cavalice? Hello? Okay, we'll go to the next person. Michael?
Yeah, so as a member of Senate, I just wanted to talk very briefly about our inherent bias as a student body. A lot of the issues we face at our school, the attention they get really depends on the community they affect. The Jewish Center vandalism, the egging and the vandalism of the first gen house got very little attention from our body and didn't get more attention from the administration than a simple email. Whereas the Greek light pause received more attention than any other issue on campus this year, because that was an issue that affected the white part of our student body. We need to get more voices involved in Student Senate, whether that be doing a better job recruiting students of color to serve on Senate, but also to partner with more of the cultural organizations like the Black Student Union, the Latin Student Alliance, the numerous cultural organizations, so we get their voices, because when their voices are heard, we can find actual actionable solutions instead of just a simple email that never goes anywhere.
Thank you, Michael. Kev, let's give this a second try.
Yo, can you hear me?
Perfect.
All right. My name is Cavalice Matthews Alvarado. I'm a recent graduate from Lehigh, and I'm in the master's program in the English department. I just want to say, while I have President Simon, Dr. Outing, Rick Hall in this call, and it's not conversations we haven't had. I want to say none of this is new, echoing Gladys's previous sentiments. But I just want to say that it's absolutely a shame and disrespectful that Lehigh would bring someone like Anita Hill and do the same behavior to another Black professor, a Black faculty, and one of the most brilliant professors I've ever had, Dr. Monica Miller. So I just want to say that this speaks to a continuous problem at Lehigh. Again, I've been here for 4 years, protesting since the first semester, saying the same things, but we need to do better at holding ourselves accountable and not Lehigh as an institution not defending itself against absolutely racist incidences that are not only racist but sexist and all the other bigotries that are tied into the systematic fabrics of this institution. So I would challenge everyone, after this phone call, this maybe is step one, but after this, we need, as students, as alumni, and as faculty, to keep holding Lehigh accountable, because I guarantee nothing else will come of this if we don't keep voicing our concerns and keep pressing them. Because again, Lehigh has gotten very good at improving optics, getting good at sending emails. But again, I'm not convinced, I'm not satisfied, and I don't think anyone else, especially not Black women at Lehigh, are satisfied. And I just want to say we need to end the mistreatment. And again, this is not something new. We've been protesting it. But that's just facts. And I think we've done a lot of talking about Blackness and Black people, but we need to speak specifically about our Black women and what are we doing for our Black faculty who are still here and retaining them. And again, I could go on for a long time, but I'm gonna leave space. I know this thing's wrapping up, so I appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Just to jump in, seeing as this is a really long overdue conversation and there are still new hands coming up in the chat, we wanted to extend the audience contribution period until at least 6:45, just to make sure all of your voices are heard.
Rajon?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, cool. I'll try to be concise, but I know one thought that I had coming into school is that I wanted to be able to leave or go through my 4 years at an institution and find as much pride as I could in that institution. And Lehigh has found time after time and way after way to reduce the amount of pride that I do have for the school. And this is a very important conversation that me and Dr. Hall had, because I want to be able to talk to a young brown or Black student who may be thinking about coming to Lehigh, and I want to be able to give glowing reviews about Lehigh University and to tell them that as much of the great and wonderful opportunities that Lehigh has to offer, I don't want to have to tell them that, like, yeah, once you get here that, yeah, you may have to face this, this, and this. No, I don't want to say that. I want to be able to find as much pride as I can in this school as many other students do. And it really hurts me to think that even before I was thinking about college, the same issues that those students were dealing with then are issues that we're still dealing with now. And I couldn't imagine, trust me, I would love to send my kids to Lehigh, or I would love to be able to say that. But at this point in time, I can't even think about recommending this institution to a lot of people of color who I would love to see come here. But Lehigh has made it hard time after time to be able to speak on its behalf. And as much as I would love to speak on the school's behalf, y'all can make it so easy, but y'all choose not to. Or there's ways after ways that y'all decide to make the wrong decision. And I guarantee you that if you make the school the way it should be, the students would be able to talk on it on y'all behalf. The what y'all would have to do would be so much far less if y'all would just do the right thing.
Thank you, brother. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Sadish? Hello? Okay. Mia?
Hi, sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, it's just a little bit loud, but where I am. And I just wanted to kind of emphasize that I don't think that I would be at Lehigh right now if I didn't have programs like Rare supporting me and all the work that they do. I don't think that Lehigh fully supports them enough or even talks about them enough, because I know for a fact that me and a lot of other students in Rare, we wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for Rare. I would have left the school, went somewhere else. Rare, Lucy, there are a lot more programs too, but they don't talk about them unless it's for advertisement or, like, I don't know, maybe advertisement just to make it seem like they're doing a great job. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. We're going to give this another try, Sadish.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right. My name is Sardis. I'm actually an employee at the food court, and I've been working at Lehigh for 4 years. I just want to say that my dream, my whole life, was to go to Lehigh. I love Lehigh, but the racism in this school is ridiculous. I have witnessed so much racism myself, students being racist to me, students being racist to the Black community. And this is something that Black students have been protesting for so long. Black students have been, I've seen it, I've seen the protests, I've seen the meetings, I've seen everything. And it's ridiculous that President Simon has not done enough for these students. It's embarrassing to know that I work in a place where racism is still involved. You guys don't do enough to like, people talk so much about, oh, we don't condone racism. This is a racist 0% school. No, because there's a lot of racism. This is ridiculous. It's ridiculous that these students have to protest so much and they're still not heard. So I just want to say that, honestly, I would love for President Simon, for all the board to do something about these, like, the racist situations, do enough about these protesters that are like these students, like when they protest, like if they ever get bailed, do do a donation, do something. These students are so important. And the fact that these students are feeling like they don't even want to be in this school no more is ridiculous. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Kyra?
Hey, can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So one thing I would like to bring up, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people have already said this, but one thing I would love to bring up is the fact that I've been in spaces where I brought up issues with the Black community and the people of color community, and athletics and Greek life was put over that conversation. And what I would like to say is, I should not feel like my life or my experience at Lehigh doesn't matter, but athletics and Greek life does. There's no reason why when I bring up an issue or when I bring up something that's going on within the Black community that is shut down, and all of a sudden Greek life is more important. All of a sudden athletics is more important. All of a sudden all these other things are more important. No, look at Black people, look at the Black students on campus and see that we are just as important as everything else that's on that campus. We matter just as much as everybody else does. There's no reason why as soon as I'm talking to a group of students, all of a sudden Black issues don't matter anymore. No, what matters is the Black people on your campus matters. And the reason why is because we bring so much value to Lehigh. We add so much things to Lehigh that you guys don't even acknowledge or see. And that's the thing that needs to change. You need to see that your Black students matter. You need to see that your Black students are valuable. You need to see that your Black students should be treated just as well as everybody else. And I'm sick and tired of being in conversations and all I hear is Greek life and athletics. No, not anymore. Greek life and athletics are important, but we are just as important. So make that a note too.
Thank you. Chris Rodriguez.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chris, and I am a graduate assistant for the Office of Multicultural Affairs, and I am also a second year, or actually third year, counseling psychology student. I wanted to talk about and bring up the relationship between the Lehigh and the South Bethlehem community. When I first arrived at Bethlehem, I learned about the history between Lehigh and South Bethlehem community from individuals in the community who still viewed Lehigh as the school up on the hill. I think that this is very problematic considering that Lehigh preaches community engagement, has researchers out in the South Bethlehem community, and that our own Black students are also supporters of Black businesses, yet people or individuals in the community still view Lehigh as the school up on the hill. I think that one action Lehigh can take is to examine their policies and examine how their policies may be against or not benefit those from the South Bethlehem community. For instance, if there is an event where we want to engage the Bethlehem community and Lehigh together, parking is not very accessible for these individuals. It's actually very difficult. And so as we are creating and examining these policies to take into account that we are an active part of this community as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I just would also like to take the time to encourage allies to raise your hand. We want to include you guys into the conversation. Shalin, my good man, how you doing?
Hi everyone, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, so my name is Shalin Ninful Edu, class of 2020 international student. I just wanted to touch up a bit on the following up from this meeting. This is kind of specifically towards like the leadership in this meeting currently. And I just wanted to know if we could have sort of like the minutes of the board meeting you have addressing the topics brought up in this town hall, or at least like get a document that details the topics brought up and the responses the board members give to these topics and the actions that are going to be taken in response to these topics. And also, if some of these topics are not addressed, the reasons why the board is not addressing them. And yeah, just wanted to make sure that there's complete transparency in how you guys address this. Thank you.
Thank you. Grace?
Yeah, so my name is Grace Kim. I'm a member of the class of 2019, and I just kind of wanted to say Greek life gets talked about so much in conversations about the campus climate, a lot of talk about the Greek, non-Greek divide, but literally when are we going to, it's like this thing that everyone knows but no one talks about, when are we going to talk about the blatant racism that goes on in recruitment for these social Greek organizations. You just need to go through every single one of their websites and see their group photos, and there is obviously an issue, and it never gets talked about. And just a lot of the racism sexism, homophobia, so much of that comes from Greek life. So much of that comes from the white students in Greek life, and we also need to talk about that. And when we're going to hold those organizations, like seriously hold those organizations accountable, not just for the underage drinking that happens in their houses, but also for the ways that they severely impact the climate for students of color, but especially Black students.
Aldo?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. So I feel like we've called out President Simon, we've called out Board of Trustees, faculty, staff, education, like the education system at Lehigh. But I personally just want to call out the white population of our students. So as like a white person, I've been around them enough to hear what they say behind the backs of like Black students specifically. And like, you might think you're not being offensive because they can't hear you, but just normalizing you saying the N-word amongst your friends, or like you specifically laughing at stereotypes towards Black people is okay because you're not around Black people and it won't offend them. I'm sorry, but we share the same skin color, but we do not share the same thoughts and ideals, and like, you are wrong. And honestly, that's such a big part of why racism is so bad at Lehigh, because you think just because you're not directly hurting them or like coming at them, you're making it normal for other white people to do this. And therefore, some people that are like naive, like genuinely don't know what's going on, they will slip up and say something that is offensive. And like, you normalizing it is doing it, like, is just as bad as like administration not doing anything about the situation. It's minor, but if you are white and on this chat, please tell everyone, because like, it's not okay. And for me, I've called out people when I've heard this, but like, I'm not gonna be there for every conversation I hear amongst white people to correct them. So if you are hearing this, don't stay silent either, because like, they genuinely just might not know. Like, honestly, people are ignorant and you need to tell them.
Thank you. Dominic?
Hi, I'm just kind of piggybacking off of what Alda just said. I'm not Black, but I am a person of color, and I think something that not only I hope that the Board of Trustees and President Simon takes to heart, but the rest of the student population, is that you don't get to choose how best to act to be an ally. If a person of color is telling you that it would be more helpful for you to do XYZ when you're doing whatever it is that you think is helpful, you shouldn't treat their criticism as a personal attack. You should see it as a way to improve yourself and the way that you're contributing to the movement. If you feel offended by the way people of color are reacting to how you're trying to show your allyship or how you're trying to support the movement and the change that they're trying to enact, you should reflect on why you're so offended and why it's so important to you that you keep sticking to a way of allyship that is ultimately just hurting the POC population. And I think that that is really important as all of these student fundraisers are going on, and as the Board of Trustees and President Simon are looking for ways to make this an anti-racist institution. At the end of the day, the only way to know what is most helpful is by listening and allowing the Black students to lead their own movement and to lead the institution into creating a space that makes them feel most safe.
Thank you. Miguel?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hi, yes, I wanted to bring up something in regards to the financial aid at Lehigh. First of all, I really hope that someone from the financial aid department is in this, because that is extremely important. I am on financial aid. I come from a lower income family, and I'm a rising senior, and I am already buried in debt from loans. I haven't even finished this, and I've already got all them loans to think about, $1,000 to pay off. On top of that, in order to get a grant, I had to sign a contract that guaranteed that I would give back money. In order to get money from financial aid, I had to sign a contract saying that in the future, I will pay this back. And I would have really liked to know whose idea that was. I'd really like to know how that got passed, because you are backing us into a corner, knowing we have no choice but to sign. I shouldn't have to beg for money under conditional requirements. I shouldn't have to beg for education and be like, it's a situation in which, oh, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. So I'd really like to know whose idea that was and how it got passed, and why you're forcing these lower income families, these Black families, people of color, into more debt just to get their education. I would like that contract removed, because I don't want to have to think about, oh, I'm getting my education, but when I'm done, I'm gonna have to pay Lehigh back because I signed that contract. So I really like to know what that's about, whose idea that was, and we have got to remove that, because you cannot push these people into a corner knowing they have no other option but to sign that. Otherwise, they cannot afford an education. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Joshira?
Hi, yep. I just want to actually just echo what Miguel said. I really think it's super important to understand the struggle that students have to go through with Black students have to go through in getting financial aid, in paying for the education, and then afterwards, as an alumni, since I graduated in 2012, dealing with that amount of debt afterwards. And so for me, it's really addressing what's going on while on campus, while as a student. And Melanie Castro did point this out, that there's not enough accessibility to professional resources or to knowing when there are these interviews taking place or information sessions with these companies that are going to promise high value jobs. And yet you have students of color, Black students specifically, that have a huge gap to worry about when I had 6-figure debt. I still have debt that I'm paying off 8 years afterwards. And I'm in Charlotte, so not only am I a Black woman, like struggling to, find a network in that sense, but then I'm also far from the direct vicinity of Lehigh University. And that's also hard to connect and understand. And I think that's a real failure on Lehigh University's resources side, on the career services, because I went to career services a lot and I still didn't feel very supported. I didn't feel like I had enough access to understand how I can really get a successful start after graduating to tackle my debt sooner. I had to figure that all by myself, and I'm trying really hard. I'm trying to be a leader in that space as well now on my own, but that's something that Lehigh should be addressing as a leader in and of itself. And another point that I want to point out is in terms of not only bringing more Black professors, but also Black professionals in these career service, any events held by career services, and even potentially looking into an entire conference that focuses on diversity and inclusion, having these companies come in, having them give career guidance, having them educate students on how to better network, because they likely had not had that discussions before, understanding before, so that they are aware, and then they could be better set up for success. And also talk about financial aid, student loan resources, how to pay off student loans, how to understand interest, how it compounds daily. There's so many things that Lehigh can be doing, but more specifically to help students of colors that have a lot of debt when you're coming out of college.
Thank you. Nikki.
Hi, I just wanted to add on to some things I said earlier, and also people talking about like financial aid. I think it's really important to point out for a lot of students that are on low income and that are also Black or students of color, it's really hard to, take all these credits that we're taking, as well as working, different work study positions or working for different offices in the school while we're making $8 an hour, $9 an hour, something like that. And other friends that I have at other schools, their work study payments are like $14 an hour, $15 an hour. And it's enough to actually provide, and you can, sustain yourself without having to get these additional jobs and things like that. And it's a lot that's all compounding. So I think that the university should really think about that. And that's one easy way to take off the burden that comes with coming to an institution like this and being a low income student. And also, I'd just like to end with this. When I'm outside of the Lehigh campus, I proudly wear my Lehigh gear, and my family does also and supports me. But every single time that we're out and we do this, I have people questioning me and people questioning my family like, oh, wow, you go to Lehigh, or, she goes to Lehigh, something like that. I already have to deal with people judging me and people thinking that I'm not able to be in an institution like this. I shouldn't have to deal with those same type of sentiments from my classmates and from the people that are around me in this community. Lehigh should at least match the efforts of what we're doing and the fact that we're fighting to get into this school, to stay in the school, and to graduate from this school. Thank you.
Thank you. Sienna?
I just also wanted to add that I feel like the parties that aren't present or that can't be on the call should also go through some form of personal development, but that PD shouldn't just like take place behind closed doors in offices or like over the summer when there's not a lot of students there. I feel like the Black and brown students that are a part of student organizations should also somewhat have a time to like sit down and talk to them as well, because it's easy for Black and brown staff members or white staff members that are on this call that understand what we're going through or can empathize with what we're going through to an extent and have the same mindset as us to understand what we're going through, to explain it to them. But it's harder for people who aren't able to be on this call, who also don't understand what we're going through, to sit in what we're telling them, like face to face, or have those conversations. And yeah, I also feel like PD is essential because I've also had classes where I remember I took this environmental science class and we were learning about global expansion, and the teacher made a joke when he got to talking about like Africa's global expansion and how their population was able to grow because a certain tribe of them weren't all running around and killing each other, and students are still taking notes. Some people are giggling, and I'm just sitting here like I literally just checked out, and it's like that was the feeling that I had coming to that class. And I can't sit there and talk to that teacher about it because this is an old man. I don't even remember his name, and I've never seen him again on campus outside of that time that I had class with him, and I dropped it. And I feel like those kind of conversations need to be had, but it's harder to have those conversations with people who have essentially your future in their hand, because that's an essential for being in the arts and science school. That's a requirement that I have to fulfill, taking an environmental science class. And that was the one that was offered, and that's the one that continually offered. So I have to take those classes regardless of who's teaching it, whether I like them or not. And I feel like that's a conversation that we should have face to face, not just playing telephone. Yeah.
Thank you. Ben?
I just want to take a second to speak to the hearts and minds of the administrators that are here today. We've had a lot of people speak, and I'm really grateful to everyone that did. A lot of those were anecdotal experiences. A lot of those were specific experiences and things to do. If everyone could just take a deep breath, I think these next things we should really pay attention to. I don't know if we need to put a star next to these notes, but I definitely think that one of the main problems that we have is not listening to the voice of the students with the student's own voice. I think that the Board of Trustees should have a lifetime role for a student that is elected to the board, and that person should have voting rights. We cannot have a problem like this come up every single time a Black person gets killed. And I'm sorry if this sounds callous, it will happen again. It has happened while the protests have gone on. And this cannot be something that we take personally as people that are trying to solve it. This is not only as a Black person, as a white person that needs to figure out what the solution is. Presidents, chief of police will come and go. Students will come and go. There are 396 people in this call. I hope that freshmen that are watching hold the school accountable. I've been here for 2 years and I've done almost everything that I can. I've joined Senate. I've spoken with Donald Outing. I've spoken to President Simon when you've come and visited the Senate meetings. I've done almost everything that I can. I can only do so much in the 2 years that are left. I really hope that the first thing is a lifetime Board of Trustees student representative that has voting rights. This is crucial. The second thing would be to have a student-run police orientation so that students themselves can tell the police how they want to be monitored, given that it's their safety that they're maintaining. We can't have a third party that doesn't understand who I am, what my experience is, what my needs as a student is on campus. And third, I think that we should have student grants where students want to take on, whether it may be something like the Critical Race and Theory Institute or whatever it may be. I think that students of color should have the right to explore and look into fields that don't necessarily pay that much money, like people that are not in STEM, taking on thousands of dollars in loans and not having any sort of loan forgiveness program. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me.
Thank you.
Just wanted to take a moment to thank you all for bringing your voices to today's conversation. If you didn't get to speak today, I just want to offer you the chance to still contribute. I'm putting in the chat now a Google form that we will be reading and transmitting to the university administration. So if you did not get to contribute a comment or would like to add something additionally, please feel free to fill that out. Finally now that we've heard from our student and our audience, we're going to transition into hearing a little bit from the administration just as a response.